I tried so hard to dig into American football, but eventually failed.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are the American football from Champaign, Illinois. Thank you. Thank you. We are not a True Records fan, but we appreciate the chance to play for you this evening. Thank you very much.
There are many really good bands with touching songs and astonishing instrumentals that made a breakthrough and forever changed the industry, and American football is no doubt one of them. But every time I put on their songs, they bring me back to memories and just make me feel sad. Why should I do it if our lives are already full of misery? Or is it a sign of genuine talent if music touches something deep inside you? American football did everything wrong. They never meant to become big. Their debut album was an absolute failure, but after years it somehow reached cult status among emo fans. LP1 is considered the best Midwest emo album of all time, and none of this should have happened at all. So how did these depressive and bittersweet songs about teenage misery not only survive, but turn into the equivalent of modern literary classics? And why are there, I believe, other people like me who actually appreciate and love the music of American football but just can't bear its emotional heaviness? Hi, this is the Lester Beer YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and let's start. This band never aimed to become popular, and the fact that it actually happened to them is crazy. American football emerged from the same Midwest hardcore and emo scene that produced bands like Fugazi and Drive Like Jehu, but they intentionally moved in the opposite direction. Inspired by slowcore, shoegaze, jazz, and post-rock acts like Codeine, Low, Red House Painters, The Smiths, and The Sea and Cake, the band wanted to create music that felt soft, hypnotic, emotional, and fluid, rather than chaotic and harsh. The group officially formed in 1997 when Mike Kinsella, Steve Holmes, and drummer Steve Lamos started jamming together in Illinois, usually with borrowed gear in Lamos' tiny living room. Most of the songs began as instrumental pieces long before vocal existed. Their writing process was heavily inspired by minimalist composer Steve Reich, especially his album Music for 18 Musicians. Instead of traditional verse-chorus songwriting, American football built songs around looping guitar patterns and shifting rhythms. A huge part of their sound came from restraint. They focused on subtle movement, a rhythm slightly changing, a harmony quietly appearing, or a drum accent landing at the perfect moment. Songs often felt mathematically complex underneath, but the band never wanted them to sound cold or technical. Their goal was to make intricate music feel natural and emotionally immersive, even for listeners who had no idea how unusual the structures actually were. Jazz also played a major role in shaping the album's atmosphere. Steve Lamos brought a strong jazz background into the band, inspired by Miles Davis and jazz fusion drummers. On songs like The Summer Ends, Lamos added melancholic trumpet lines that gave the music an even deeper sense of nostalgia. The drumming throughout the album was intentionally restrained, often avoiding obvious rock moments in favor of patience and mood. Lyrically, the record captured the uncertainty of early adulthood. Breakups, nostalgia, loneliness, and the feeling of watching one stage of life disappear before the next one fully begins. Kinsella later admitted many of the lyrics embarrassed him because they were written with complete emotional honesty at age 20, but that vulnerability is also why so many listeners connected to the album. The band repeatedly described LP1 as a document of endings and beginnings, leaving youth behind, graduating college, and entering adulthood without knowing what comes next. And here is the first problem with American football. Their music is way too emotionally heavy. It brings this feeling that your life isn't complete and that everything is temporary, fragile, and meaningless. And all of these topics are paired with sad melodic guitar playing that carries a huge sense of nostalgia. Every time I listen to their debut, I feel like I'm going backwards, returning to my high school or university years, which of course were full of struggles and moments of questioning myself. Where am I going? And what's the point of all these struggles? Ironically, the album was never meant to become influential. American football barely toured, had almost no band photos, and already knew they were breaking up while recording the record. Their label, Polyvinyl, released it through a simple handshake agreement, mostly to document the music before the band disappeared. The sessions themselves were quick, raw and low budget. Nevermind eventually became the band's signature song almost by accident. Mike Kinsella later called it a great little pop song, while Holmes described it as a dramatic teenage breakup song that somehow evolved into one of the defining emo tracks of all time. A huge part of American football's emotional impact came from how the band connected the music to feelings of transition, nostalgia, and growing up. According to Mike Kinsella, most of the lyrics were written during a period when his entire world revolved around endings, failed relationships, and the uncertainty of adult life. The Summer Ends became one of the clearest examples of that approach. The band described it as a song about change, melancholy, that comes with entering a new chapter of life. They described the song as a story about the cycle in which kids in the Midwest see summer as an important part of their lives that ends every time they move to the next grade and the season changes. Honestly reflected a more youthful and awkward side of the album. Mike Kinsella later admitted some of the lyrics now feel embarrassing because they were so tied to teenage emotions and teen dreams, but he still appreciates the honesty behind them. For sure showed the softer and more delicate side of the record. Mike Kinsella explained that even his vocal melodies were influenced by Lamos' jazz background. Lamos called the lyrics some of his favorites on the album and compared the song's innocence and simplicity to older 1950s and 60s pop music. I'll See You When We're Both Not So Emotional was described by the band as their closest attempt at writing a normal emo or indie pop song. Stay Home, which several members called the definitive American football song, captured the band's entire philosophy. The lyrics are simple and emotionally heavy. The musicians compared playing the song to entering a flow state, where the music feels alive and constantly growing. American football's debut embodied the whole concept of melancholic youth, and it immediately brings back so many memories and so much misery that sometimes I ask myself, do I really want to live through all of this one more time, and why should I listen to the kind of music that makes me feel emotionally bad? This is where the main problem of perceiving American football songs lies. Even though they're beautiful, they emotionally hurt you, and I just can't do anything about it. On the other hand, true art has always dealt with the negative sides of our lives, and it questions really controversial and unpleasant topics. The band broke up because the members no longer lived in the same city and their college years were coming to an end. Kinsella and Steve Holmes both moved to Chicago and stayed in contact at first. Meanwhile, drummer Steve Lamos moved to Colorado, where he later became a professor. Kinsella wanted to form a new group where he had full creative control, eventually launching the Project Owen. In April 2014, American Football announced they were reuniting for live performances. Holmes said the group realized that the time was ripe for three middle-aged dudes to play some old songs about teenage feelings. And again, the album's cover artwork depicted the American Football House, the same building featured on the cover of the band's debut album. It's an actual house in Urbana. Built in 1893, by the 1990s the house had become a popular venue for college parties and punk concerts. No members of American football ever lived there, but as fellow university students, they were friends with photographer Chris Strong and attended parties at the house. Strong took a couple thousand photographs of it, and a few of them later became covers for American football albums. And finally, after the house became iconic, in 2023 American Football purchased it and started offering it for rent. When Lamos was approached by a student in 2009 and learned that the band had become popular through the file-sharing service LimeWire, he was shocked. While remaining in the shadows, American Football slowly started gaining attention from music diggers who somehow felt connected to that kind of nostalgia. And then, boom, it clicked. The next miserable generation, one that felt the same way American football once described themselves, naive and nerdy, found in their music the perfect soundtrack for edgy coming-of-age struggles. It all came at the end of that optimistic millennial era, when millennials were suddenly facing huge economic and political problems, while the rise of the internet and technological progress also triggered new mental health issues. And here we are, the second LP by American football, featuring the interior of that cult house, almost as if it were saying, "We came back to the same place, haunted by the same ghosts of the past." The first line of the opening track, "Where Are We Now?" speaks for itself. Where are we now? Both home alone in the same house. Yes, that's the same nostalgic trap. And here I find the second problem with American football. Like many works of modern philosophy or literature, it doesn't really present anything new except going backwards, feeling pity for yourself, and becoming nostalgic for your past. It's a tragedy when a person has nothing in the present except memories. That's why American football didn't actually change the meaning of their songs on the second LP. "My Instincts Are the Enemy," sings Mike Kinsella on the same title track. He literally claims that home is where the haunt is, the past still present tense, and it sounds understandable. Looking at the moody cover of the release, we suddenly realize that the character from the first LP has returned home only to understand that nothing actually changed and that his life is still haunted by the past he once dreamed of escaping. That's why he is born to lose, lost for so long, and needs a drink or two or three to fall asleep without his beloved.
Those wounds won't lick themselves. It's a good thing.
I don't want to overjudge it, but the fact that more and more people connected with these lyrics over the years speaks for itself. If people constantly look into their past, they simply can't move forward and instead become uncomfortably numb, unable to do anything meaningful with their lives. Their LP3 became even heavier and more tear-jerking. The cover image is blurred, we no longer see the iconic house, and the songs become more mournful and painful. Even while appreciating the musicians' talent and finding their music beautiful, I just can't bear this emotional heaviness. Seriously, when he sings "Now I'm Your Burden" with his trembling voice, I almost feel physical pain. But at the same time, the instrumental side of the band only keeps getting better with every release.
And a desperate thief could ever set free.
LP4 is no doubt one of the best albums of 2026 and one of the strongest releases in American football's catalog. But from the perspective of content and meaning, it feels twice as painful as their debut. There's nothing new to say or do, there's nothing new to crave. Sun in the supposedly happy and peaceful year of 2026 sounds like another nail in the coffin. And when Kinsella sings "The story of my life is in disarray, it's written in ink that never dries," it feels like a verdict on an entire generation or even an entire genre. Because finally Emo says, "Hey, nothing has changed and we're all doomed. Just deal with it."
I got some bad news.
And this is the last and final problem with American football. It is a game without even an attempt to win something, achieve something, earn praise, or give somebody even the slightest hint that we're at least partly fine. I don't know why, but I still love this band with a strange kind of love. So what do you think about American football? Do you feel the same way or completely the opposite? Share your thoughts in the comments, subscribe to the channel, and see you soon!